YouTube, chosen a barber, and today we have a drop fade for you guys. Wavelength on top. So as you can see, we are starting our initial guideline right at his occipital bone. And we're going to curve that line up above and around his ear. And you're going to repeat the same thing on the other side, just making sure everything is symmetrical and even and clean. And we are using the outliner blade on our Supra ZR clippers by Andis. And we're just cleaning up everything else. Cleaning up the entire guideline. For me, I know a lot of barbers like to just put the line in there and then they'll start fading. Again, just for me, I try to keep everything as clean as possible, as neat as possible. So I do a lot of my cleaning up and blending and all of that stuff throughout the hair cutting process. Now I'm just pulling the skin, just to again, just to get just that much closer. For me, most of my clients, unless they request, again, I don't use the shaver on this part just because that area is typically highly sensitive. So I really don't use the shaver on the bottom of my fades, again, unless the client requests it. So for me, I'll do this just to get it as close as I can get it without the shaver. And that usually, as you can see, is pretty clean. So the next guideline we're putting in is our OA blade. And we're putting that guideline in parallel to the previous guideline. And the width of your next guideline or your guidelines period is really just going to determine how you want your fades to come out. So for me, I like to kind of stretch my fades out a little bit. So typically I'll start my bald guideline, my initial guideline, a little lower than what you might expect, just so I can have more room to blend and fade out my different lines of demarcation on my different sections, if you will. So the width of your different sections is just really just going to be determined by how you want your fades to look. So that second guideline we put in was the 1.5 blade, again parallel to that OA, and we're taking that same 1.5 blade and we're cutting his hair down to the desired length on top. Or I believe this is my 1 3/4 blade on top. So as you can see, I'm just following the growth pattern of his hair, combing everything out of the way, just making sure everything flows, is laid down. I'm getting all of that cut hair out of the way as well. And then with waves, man, you really want to make sure you're paying attention to the growth pattern of the client's hair, which way it's going. You want to constantly be combing and brushing the hair all the time, because you can and you will cut a plug in their hair if you're not paying attention to what's going on. So you want to be very, very focused, especially when you're cutting a waver. I used to have waves back in my heyday, so you know what I'm saying, dudes with waves are usually really, really critical of their hair, and I mean, you know, rightfully so is their hair. It's a lot of work to get your hair to look like that. So you want to just be very attentive to what's going on. Now we are blending out our ball guideline into our OA guideline using our JRL Fresh Fade clippers. And again, the good things about these clippers is they have notches on the sides of them on the lever, so you'll be able to easily keep track of where you are within your fade, within your clipper positioning, or your lever positioning, should I say. So initially, to knock out that guideline, I'm going to start out with the clipper closed, and then we're going to attack just right at the initial line. Then we open that clipper to the second notch, and we're attacking, and we're blending, and we are feathering. One thing that I've been noticing within my technique since doing these tutorials regularly is while blending out between the ball guideline and the OA, you want to have a feathery touch. You want to have a light touch. You don't need to necessarily apply any real pressure, because again, the clipper is going to do the work. It is a machine. You have to let the machine be a machine, so you don't really have to apply too much elbow grease. A light feathery touch, just making sure of your clipper positioning, just making sure that when you do your C stroke, you're not taking it too high, you're not going too high up into that guideline on a incorrect blade set. So again, we're just repeating the same steps on the other side. The blade is all the way closed, and I'm just attacking right at that initial guideline. Next, we're going to open that clipper to the second notch, and then here is kind of where we start feathering and blending out everything up into the OA. And pulling this skin will also help. It also helps. It helps give you more room to blend. It also kind of helps with lifting the hair off of the scalp a little bit, which also just allows you to get a tighter blend, a tighter fade, more detail. And especially with this particular client's head, because he has wave and his hair is dense and it's also kind of like silky, so it's pretty tough to blend. You have to really be consistent and really attack these lines. Like as you can see, I'm pulling the skin. You have to employ a few different techniques when I'm cutting his hair. Now our next step is to blend our OA guideline into our 1.5 guideline. We are using our Andis Master to do that with our double magnetic purple zero guard on there, the original, the OG. And again, as you can see, constantly pulling that skin and combing, toggling the lever between all the way closed and halfway open. And again, we're just blending between the OA and the 1.5. You do not need to go into the length on top. And I'm also using the corners of my blade. As you can tell, the guard is missing some teeth, which is good because it allows me to just focus my attention on the corners of the blade anyway. So when you're this blending process, this fading process, you want to make sure to use the corners of your blade. If you don't, you'll probably end up taking the fade higher than what you want to do. right at the front of his hairline, his vertical bar. I'm not sure if you saw at the beginning, and I should have pointed it out, but he had a light spot there. I have the same issue. It's just a light spot, from the do-rags, wearing hats, or whatever the case may be. So, I did not cut into that part of his hair when I established my OA guideline. So when I'm blending, I'm able to just kind of blend it in, and it doesn't look unnatural. It still looks dark is what I'm trying to say. Alright, so now it's more detailed work, and I'm using my Wall Legend clipper with the fade blade, and here I will detail everything from the ball into the OA, from the OA into the 1.5, and this is just all about your touch, all about the clipper angle, all about using the corners of the blade. And again, with this particular client, because his hair is the way it is, because it's wavy, because it's dense, because it's almost pretty silky, you just have to constantly attack the same spot. And again, just be patient. You don't want to go too fast. You don't want to rush. You want to take your time. Look at different spots. Step back. Turn the chair around. Look in the mirror. As you can see, I'm just using the corner of the blade, attacking some dark spots that I see. And if you can tell, if you notice, man, the spots that I'm attacking are just slowly kind of fading away. Again, as you can see, I'm not being overly aggressive. I'm not applying too much pressure. Light touch, corners of my blade, constantly combing, constantly brushing. And again, we just repeating the same step all the way around the head. What you do on one side, you do to the other. I'm just attacking the very bottom of that ball guideline with the clipper closed. And this is a fade blade, meaning it just gets more detailed. It's a little thinner than your regular clipper blade. Light strokes, corners of the blade, constantly combing, constantly brushing, pulling the skin. Those are all different techniques and just different things that you want to concentrate on and you want to focus on during the blending process, during the fading process. And in order to get the fade that you desire, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. It's not going to. It takes time. So just stick with it. Keep going. It takes a minute to train that barber eye. So continuously watching these tutorials, learning, you will definitely begin to get the results that you want. Now, just the last little bit of detail work using our JRL trimmer, and we're just attacking right at the very bottom of that line. Again, using the corners of the blade, And then I also, again, during this process, like I said, this is not just for me to pass on my knowledge or my skill set as if I'm some advanced barber, man. This is really also for me to learn, grow, and get better. I call this game tape for me. So as I'm watching these, as I'm recording these voiceovers, as I'm watching them to make sure all the edits are good, I'm also watching myself, watching my clipper positioning, and just everything that I can do to improve on my skill set as well. So there's some different things that throughout this process that I'm doing differently, even from the first new tutorial that we put out. So on the next batch of tutorials, I'm going to have some new things that I've added in there that I've learned that I wanted to try to help just yield a better result. So these all aren't going to be the same every single time. I'm learning, bro. I'm learning. I'm getting better. So that's what this is about. And again, more detail work. I probably seen a couple of spots, obviously, that I want to touch up. And again, like I said, man, doing a fade on someone with waves, and then his waves are, in his head. So it's very, I'm not gonna say difficult, but it's tedious. It's a tedious process, just making sure a blend on the waver is done correctly. For this particular cut, this particular client, a lot more detail work is needed to ensure a blend that I'm satisfied with, and then that they're satisfied with. So now, clipper over comb, and we are blending from that 1.5 guideline using our detachable blade into our 1 3/4 on top. So the 1.5 was done against the grain. The 1 3/4, the length on top, we cut with the grain. And to blend into that, we are using clipper over comb. And here, again, you want to be extremely careful. You want to be patient. You want to be focused. You want to be intentional. Right now, we're starting out using the wide tooth side of the comb to cut down some bulk. And as you can see, we're starting to get a good blend in there. I believe I have the clipper open. And again, I'll either start with the clipper closed, the clipper open, the fine tooth side of the comb, the wide tooth side of the comb, depending on the client, depending on the head cut, depending on the texture of the client's hair. It's a bunch of different factors that'll go into determining how I begin the fade or how I begin the clipper over comb process. With this particular client, again, because he has the waves, it was important for me to give myself a little bit more room for error, which is the reason why I started with the wide tooth comb and the blade open. So now it's time to get a little bit more detailed, and we're doing the wide tooth side, and we're starting with the blade open. And again, that just gives you a little bit more room for error. It'll allow you to kind of step back and see where you are, and you'll be able to make adjustments either in the clipper or your comb, depending on whichever you want to do. So give yourself a little bit more room for error. It's okay. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be perfect right from the jump. As you can see, I'm using the wide tooth side of the comb, and my clipper blade is open, and I'm knocking down hair, moving some bulk, blending it in. And if more detail work is needed, we're going to be able to do that. You can always take more hair off. You can't put none back. So make sure you do what you're supposed to do. They say measure 10 times and cut once. So for me, this is the equivalent of that. I used to be a carpenter back in my heyday. So again, man, this is just another one of those tools and lessons I learned from a different life. Measure 10 times and cut once. using the wide tooth side, then we're going to switch to the fine tooth side. I started with the clipper open, and I'm going to close it. It's all about detail work again. You're giving yourself room for error. We're all humans. We all make mistakes. It's okay to give yourself some room to make a mistake. If you have the right foundation, if you have the right skill set, you'll be able to overcome, any mistake you'll make. You'll be able to fix it, and to the client, it won't feel like anything different. They won't know a mistake has been made. You will, but because you put in the time, you put in the practice, you've given yourself some room for error. You already know what adjustments you need to make in order to get it back to where it needs to be. So it's okay to make a mistake every now and again. Again, more detail work. I want to blend a little higher into the length on top. So as you can see, we went and grabbed a bigger comb. I don't know if y'all heard, that was my son interrupting my voiceover, but so just more detail work throughout the fade, using a wider tooth comb to help me remove some more bulk maybe at the top, to transition from the length on top to the side. And I'm just kind of combing everything out, doing a last little check on the fade. And here we are polishing the cut. We're just taking our fade blade and we are gliding right over the top of the hair, just to knock down any hairs that's sticking over the top, just to give it even more of a polished look, even more of a clean look. This is a part of finishing the cut. Every hair counts, and again, this is a part where you want to be extremely focused, patient. You want to take your time. You don't have to speed past it, because again, this is a part where you can dramatically destroy your work. So you want to be very patient, very focused, very diligent, and more polished work with the shears. Here, this is Hairline Prep. I got a little bit of spritz that I applied to a cotton round, and I'm just applying it to the hairline. We blow dry it dry, and then we come in with our trimmer. This is the Andis skeleton. I don't know the whole number EXO thing, but the all black skeleton Andis trimmer. And we are just shaping them up. So again, I believe in keeping everything as natural as possible. So this is me keeping everything as natural as possible. if I move my arm out the way. We started that vertical bar, and we just transitioned to lining that mustache up. I like to try to, just do one side at a time. So I do the vertical bar, then I'll jump to the mustache, and then I'll turn them around, and then we'll do the other vertical bar and the other mustache and the other side of the beard. And then we're going to connect with the hairline in the middle. Again, you want to have a light touch. These trimmers are zero gapped. I can't remember if I zero gapped them or if I just used them straight out the box, but they are zero gapped. And so you want to be careful. You want to use a light touch. As you can see, I started the shape up from the middle of his hairline, and we're bringing it straight across. And again, I'm just keeping everything as natural as possible. And for the next batch of tutorials, I'm going to work on getting a more straight on shot of me doing my lineups. Yeah, but he was sweating a little bit, so that's what the towel was about. And as you can tell, if you can tell, I went back to the middle of the hairline, and I'm bringing the shape up around to the other side, trying to keep everything even and symmetrical. I'm just cleaning up the bottom of the beard. He likes the line right at his jawline, so that's what we do. And I'm using my JRL trimmer because this trimmer is not zero gapped. It's factory set out of the box, so I use it again just for cleanup work, a little bit of detail work. And we are applying the straight razor to the beard. I do not like to use my clipper on the top of the beard. While I was in barber school, I just really noticed that was another sensitive area for a lot of clients. And for me, I guess my clipper touch or whatever I was going on, it would just, leave a line or scar them up. So I decided to stop doing that. And also the razor just gives me more control over the curvature of the beard as opposed to the clipper itself or the trimmer itself. So that's another reason why I like to just do a straight razor line on the top of the beard. And with my with my razor lineup, I do 2 shaves. So this might be my first pass, and I'll dust them off, brush them off, then I'll come back a second time just to make sure everything is detailed, make sure everything is clean and even. Pulling the skin is essential to any type of razor work. And again, also with your razor work, man, Just like with your clippers, you want to have a light touch. You don't need to be aggressive. You don't need to be applying too much pressure. Let the razor do the work. This is the cut. Mid drop fade, wavelength on top. Let me know what y'all think. Make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Follow Humble Legend Grooming on Instagram. Follow Humble Legend Apparel. I appreciate y'all. Yeah, man.